Trucker Dump, episode 130. In today's show, I'm going to tell you a little bit about having my nephew Jake with me out here on the truck in June. We got a piss load of news stories to talk about, including some legislation stuff, some recalls, the rise of guaranteed driver pay. Hey, that doesn't sound too bad. More about truck parking, and something called bus and dump, which honestly I'd never heard of before. I'll also point you to a test to figure out your driving personality. Uh-oh. Trucker Grub still hanging on by a hair. And I talked to Classic Truck Insurance about becoming an owner-operator and getting your own authority. In the feedback section, we discuss more about truck parking, sleeping, McGyvering your truck, and a fellow trucking author. And for the main topic, how much should truckers bend the rules? This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Classic Truck Insurance and Citadel Fleet Safety.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com, resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey, folks. You guys are all the cool kids. Why? Because you downloaded this podcast. Thanks a lot. Hey, if you're new to the podcast, my name is Todd McCann. As of last month, I'm a 21-year trucker. I'm obviously a podcaster and a blogger. I'm the author of 2 ebooks, Trucking Life and How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, both available on Amazon. And here's something I bet you didn't know. My first car was a sweet 68 Firebird with a 404 speed. It had traction bars, had 50s on the rear. It was bad. It was red. It wasn't cherry red. It wasn't maroon. It was somewhere in between. And here's the kicker of it. The real eye catcher of it was it had gold Krager SS mag wheels. Yes, I know that sounds hideous, but trust me, it really wasn't in the day. It was awesome, and everybody loved that car, including me. And with that, I guess I need to go back and change every one of my passwords and my security questions. Phew, boy, I'm brilliant. Anyway, hey, you may have noticed it's July and we didn't get a June episode. Well, I probably should have announced that ahead of time. I knew it wasn't going to happen. I had my nephew Jake out on the truck with me. He is my eldest nephew. Okay, actually, he's not my eldest. My eldest is Cody, which is my brother's boy, but he lives in a different state and I never get to see him. So for all intents and purposes, Jake is my eldest nephew that I get to see quite often. He was out here with me last year. He had a horrible time last year. I mean, we had a good time together, but he got to see nothing. I mean, we're from Missouri. He got to see Illinois, Iowa, Indiana. Nothing. He got to see nothing. This year was a lot better. We got all the way out east. We got down to Florida. We went to a water park down there near Tampa. It was right across the street from Busch Garden. It's called Adventure Island, I believe. It was really fun. We had a blast down there. Had to sit for a while under the canopy because there was a thunderstorm. Of course, thunderstorms are not odd in Florida, but usually they're like 15 minutes and they're gone. Well, this one lasts like an hour and a half. So we were all just, stayed underneath the canopies and tried to stay out of it. Man, it was flat coming down too. But we had a good time there. I managed to get some parking at that little bitty tiny Flying J outside of Tampa, which was a miracle, but I was bobtail, so that helped. Anyway, we had a pretty good time doing that. This year, he finally got to see some mountains, which was great. We got to go on I-64 and parts of I-81 in Virginia. We got to go on the I-64 in West Virginia and I-77. So he got to see lots of nice hills and stuff like that. And probably his favorite trip was when we went from, we were going down through Kentucky. You cut off at Corbin, Kentucky there on, US 25? Is that right? I think that's right. And you go back through Cumberland Gap and up through there towards Kingsport. So we got to see the back roads of Kentucky and Tennessee. It was pretty cool. He got some great snapshots and was really thrilled with all that. So anyway, it was just a pretty good time. If you remember last year, we listened to a lot of rap music, which was horrible to me. I hate rap, but I forced some music on him last time too. Well, we didn't hardly listen to music at all this year, which was very strange. he's been getting more into the Bible lately, so we actually sat up and discussed a lot of stuff in the Bible. We went through all of Romans pretty much, and we were into Corinthians, and was just going through, and things he didn't understand, he would ask me about. And we had a blast doing that, so it was quite awesome. I was pretty happy with the whole trip. He's safely at home now. He actually didn't really want to go home, which was kind of sad, but well, he's got to get back to his life. He's got to get a job, that boy. He just graduated high school, so get a job, Jake. Anyway, well, I guess to start off, we should mention the Mother's Day truck convoy that's held in Pennsylvania every year. Did a podcast on that a couple of episodes ago. You can listen to that and prepare for next year. That was episode 128, I believe. Oh, God, don't quote me on that. It's hard to believe I have so few podcasts, but I can't remember what the numbers of any of them. Anyway, and in the last podcast, we were speculating. We weren't quite sure if they made their $500,000 goal, and ta-da, they did. So congratulations to the Make-A-Wish Foundation and Ben Lee, who I interviewed on the show. And thanks to all the truckers and all the supporters who made that happen. That is awesome. Hope they can kick that butt next year. They made $501,000. So just barely. Okay, here's something kind of fun. A driver personality test. Yeah, I took it. It's pretty darn accurate, I gotta say. I don't know how it did. Maybe it's just reading my mind or something. No, it goes through, it asks you a few questions. None of them are super personal, and it asks you about how you would handle certain situations on the road. You can find this at StephenBabcock.com. That's Stephen with a PH. There's a link in the show notes. It's probably easier because it's actually Stephen Babcock /what's-your-driving-personality. So it's kind of a pain in the butt. Anyway, link in the show notes. Click on that. Go take it. Here's what it had to say about me after all said and done. It says, your result, I am pragmatic. It says, while you are generally a conscientious, I can't say that word. While you are generally a conscientious, see, told you, and polite driver, you are willing to bend the rules just a little bit. Everyone else is doing it, right? Although you aren't glued to your cell phone, you're willing to occasionally take a call or send a text when it seems safe. You don't let your temper boil over when other drivers do things that are aggressive or lazy, but you are willing to make up a few minutes where you can, and you're not going to let someone else slow you down. Well, that kind of fits with my drive safe and stay out of my way, doesn't it? Told you this thing was pretty accurate. Anyway, go to the show notes. The link is in the show notes. And for those of you who are new to the show, you'll find the show notes somewhere within your podcast app. If you're using the Apple Podcast app, it does not actually let you click on those links. I'm sorry about that, but you can go to the webpage, abouttruckdriving.com is where that's at, and you search for Trucker Dump 130, and you'll see the show notes at the end of the blog post. And there'll be all kinds of cute little links you can click on there. Hey, in case y'all haven't figured it out, that music always means that you've got an ad coming up. This one's by Classic Truck Insurance. Now, for those of you new to the show, what I've been trying to do is when I get a sponsor, I offer them the opportunity to have an interview as one of their ad spots. I just feel it offers better value all the way around. Both for them, they're getting more bang for their buck, and they're getting to talk about their business a little bit more, but also for you, because you might be learning something new. I'm hoping that's working out for you guys. It's working for me, so obviously I want you guys to be happy about it too. I'm just really digging this company and what they have to offer truckers. But you know what? I'm not the only one who digs Classic Truck Insurance. I'm sure most of you already know who Tony Justice is. He's a trucker, but he's also a country music artist. His video, Brothers of the Highway, has been seen 2.1 million times so far. Let's hear what Tony has to say about Classic Truck Insurance.
Driving trucks out here on the big road, it's not all about driving trucks. It's also about taking care of others. That's why me and my Brothers of the Highway call on the truck people at Classic Truck Insurance. With 30 years experience, you can trust they have your back. So do yourself a favor and give them a call today. You'll be glad you did.
Brothers of the Highway, children of the way.
Well, there you have it. And since Tony is so freaking cool, you know our guest is cool. Let's get on with it. All right, today we have Temple Scalf on the show. He is the president of Classic Truck Insurance, who some of you may recognize as our latest sponsor. Welcome to the show, Temple.
Well, thank you very much, Todd. Glad to be here.
You know, you sell truck insurance, but today we're actually going to not talk about a lot of truck insurance. We've got you on the show today to talk about becoming an owner-operator. So I guess the first question to you would be, have you ever been an owner-operator?
Well, that's an easy answer. No, I have not.
Okay.
Where I got my experience, I spent 13 years with the Peterbilt dealership program in the insurance department, and all my customers were owner-operators, mostly in the 1 to 3 truck range underneath their authority, and or up to 9 trucks. So I'm a owner-operator 1 to a small fleet guy, and that's where I cut my teeth, so to speak, and I understand from the cradle to the grave what owner-operators are up against back when and through today. So that's my qualifications and experience, and that's what we do here at Classic is we help the owner-operator. They're the lifeblood of the industry. And we know their needs, and we certainly try to help them all that we can and guide them.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear a stat not too long ago that 97% of the trucks out on the road are owner-operators. And I don't think most people would realize that, because they just look around and they see the big fleets that they recognize. But really, it's the owner-operators that keep this thing going.
I think we're reading the same paper, Todd. You hear about the huge fleets, but they only represent 1 to 3% of the number of motor carriers that are out there. I think there's some, at the last count, since the increase in the economy, close to 400,000 owner-operators with authority in the marketplace today, and needing more. And as you know, because of the driver situation, that we're in the midst of some real serious problems with having enough drivers.
Yeah, boy, ain't that the truth. But there is good news in what you said. I'm finally one of the 1%ers.
Well, great.
It's about time.
Fantastic. 1%ers to me, read the daily news, and see the news, it talks about the income level of 1%. Yeah, I wish I was kind of there, but not there. But you're in the 1%ers then, eh?
Apparently, yeah. That's the only way I'm ever going to make it to the 1%ers, I'm pretty sure. All right, so lots of time at Peterbilt. So you met lots of owner-operators. What would you say would be some of the personality traits and maybe the skills of somebody who would make a good owner-operator?
By golly, I thought about that. A maverick. Think about an owner-operator in the Wild West days, braving the Wild West. And I think that's what's needed. I think once someone with that tenacity, of course, the ability, the knowledge, the experience, but just the tenacity. There's a saying that truck drivers don't cry. And you that's a tough job, and it takes a tough person.
Yeah.
And, so a personality trait of being tough, tenacious, and being a maverick of sorts.
Yeah. Well, I guess that explains why. Wow, did you hear those brakes? I'm always getting these loud noises to add ambiance to my podcast. That's why I look at it. Trucking industry, gotta love it.
Well, my middle name's Jake Brake, so to some people, and to some people it's Jackknife. So you know what that says about me.
Yeah. Well, hey, you mentioned something a second ago with owner-operators. You think that experience is a thing. That's probably one of the questions I get asked the most when people email me is, they'll say, hey, I want to go owner-operator. How should I go about doing this? And I just got into the industry, and my advice to them is always, I would hold off if I was you. I would want to make sure this is the right industry for you, and get your feet wet before you do it. Would you back me on that or not?
I would. When you're driving a train out there, that's not for someone that's green, fresh out of driving school. So go out there and get you some experience on somebody else's dime, and then think about getting your own authority and going into business for yourself, being your own boss.
Yeah, someone else's dime, I think, is the key phrase right there, especially in that first year. I have talked to very, very few truckers who haven't had some sort of little incident in their truck. I've never paid for any of the damages I've done to these trucks. You know, I have a pretty good safety record, but you know, everybody smacked a mirror now and then, or, you know, cut a corner a little bit too tight, something like that, especially when you're backing. And I would not want to own my own truck right out of the gate and have to pay for that. I don't think they know how much money it takes to start to become an owner-operator.
Well, Todd, accidents are just what they are. Nobody can predict them. They just happen. And that's what a pure accident's all about. Yeah. But, you know, as a person that's a thinking person, which hopefully we all are, is we don't want to hurt anybody with a truck. Yeah. And you're driving a big train in amongst four-wheelers that cut you off and stop in front of you, and all kinds of problems out there. And even when things are not your fault, you can hurt somebody with a truck very badly. So there's care must be taken. Bodily injury claims are up, even though all the safety precautions that been taken through FMCSA and imposed for the last 25 years I've been involved with the truck insurance business. And the claims that have bodily injury involved in them or death are still up. So they don't know what the answer is, but I can tell you this, it all starts with a blue cap driver. If you're a blue cap driver, you can safeguard yourself against a lot of mishaps as contrasted with being a green driver just starting out without getting some real good experience.
Yeah. I've never heard that term blue hat. What is that? Does that just mean experience?
That means experienced, and a driver that can take a trainee in his cab and he can take him under his wing and show him a whole lot about the trucking business that they would never know learning it on their own, and they would get into a lot of trouble. And it's just they're just good to listen to, because those are the guys that are salt of the earth, and they're the ones with the least amount of accidents. And unfortunately, that age group there are fewer and fewer every day of blue cap drivers. We need a new breed of blue cap drivers, and I'm optimistic we're going to have them. But I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I'm not. So I don't know how they're going to get them with the way things are going. You know, unless something major changes in the industry, I don't know how they're planning on getting all these millennials in here. Just don't know how they're going to do it. But I guess we'll find out, right?
That's right. Keep it going. We'll find out.
That's a whole different subject we don't have time for today.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we've identified that you should probably get some experience under your belt. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that drivers make when they are either starting to become an owner-operator or right after they become an owner-operator?
Okay, well, let's take it from the standpoint of that driver wants to be in his own boss, and he's had experience now with a fleet. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, a driver who's driving the truck of a fleet owner, or he leases his own truck up and under the motor carrier operation of a fleet, may just leave for the wrong reasons. There's been a poll taken several times down through the years, and it's that of all the amenities and all the things that truck drivers would like to have from a fleet, that home time is number one.
Yeah.
So if you leave for that reason and you think you're going to be able to stay home and keep turning those wheels and make the money necessary to take care of the maintenance, the fuel, and save a little back and bring home a decent paycheck for your efforts, and you're going to be able to stay home all the time, not going to happen. OIDA did a poll that said that over the road, long-haul truck drivers are home about 200 nights a year. So the want to be home drives truckers to want to, oftentimes to be their own boss, and they're just really not. You can get a little more home time, and you can arrange being home maybe when you want to, but you still have to get back on the road, keep those wheels running.
Yeah.
The other thing is not only the home time, but forced dispatch. There again, if you're working for a fleet, you know, that old dispatcher's like that ugly goalie in a hockey game. He's going to call you, and he's going to get you up, and he's going to tell you where you need to be.
Right.
Because, you know, that fleet wants to make a profit on that truck.
Yeah.
So just keep in mind there's two things that you have to consider, that you have to motivate yourself to to get up and get going, which most don't have a problem with, but sometimes it hits them like a ton of bricks that's happened to them, that, oh yeah, well, that wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah. I think I've talked to owner operators who have had the exact opposite experience than what they expected. You know, they thought they were going to actually be able to control it and have a little bit more time off, but then they get into a bad lease or something like that, and then they end up spending more time on the road. You know, now they're out 6 to 8 weeks just to pay the bills, because they didn't research well enough, or whatever reason. You know, it just isn't working out, and then they find it's exactly the opposite of what they were going for.
Agreed. And Todd, one more thing that comes to mind is when truckers move from driving for someone else to being their own boss under their own motor carrier authority, is to take the time before you jump ship and make sure you have enough arranged loads for your income. Now, that could be a combination of direct appointment and getting loads from a shipper, or lining up a number of brokers, and/or in addition to that, load boards. But make sure before you jump ship and start getting your own authority and start spending up to $10,000 sometimes to get started, or credit to draw from, before you actually get your first payday, is just make sure you've got plenty of good paying freight as best as possible for the time lined up, so that you don't have an interruption in your loads, unless you say you just want to take some time and then come back in a few days.
Now, since that is such an important issue, getting loads, what is your opinion on maybe taking an intermediate step between being a company driver and going full owner operator with your own authority? What do you think about leasing a truck, or maybe you buy a truck but you lease on with the company who can actually get those loads? What do you think about that intermediate step?
Well, it's interesting. If you leave a fleet and they still would like to lease you on, and they find loads for you, then of course there's going to be some monetary split.
Sure.
You're going to stay busy, but you're not going to get as much as if you were your own boss. But there may be a trade-off. You may have difficulty, since everything takes time, and you may, as a trucker, have not gotten your loads before for yourself, and you may not have a wife or significant other at home to hawk the load boards or work with brokers to get you those loads while you're picking up and delivering, and on the way to deliver that load, they can be working on another load for you. What motor carriers run into when they have their own authority, is they're having to wear all the hats.
Yeah.
And it takes all the time, and they're working all the time within the cab of their truck and doing things that were done for them at a fleet. But still yet, the entrepreneurial spirit, and for the 25 years reigns, and for the 25 years that I've been involved in truck insurance for owner-operators and small fleets, there's a constant flow from fleets getting their own authority, becoming their own boss, and getting out there and working off of spot freight in the marketplace and being successful. It's just the drive to get away from an organized arrangement. Everything's done for you, and being your own boss and doing it for yourself. It's just something that draws drivers to do that, and they've been doing it for many, many years, and I don't see that stopping, especially in the last few years. The economy is better and even getting better. You look at some of the things that you can look at and find loads and types of loads and what they're paying. They're paying more than ever before. Of course, expenses are up too. But if you keep turning those wheels, you won't be making what you would make at Burger King. And I had a Burger King sandwich today. I'm not against Burger King, but you're going to make a whole lot more than that because of the what you're being paid for freight today. A lot of the fleets have trimmed back, and they're letting trucks sit for non-profitable routes. Well, guess who gets those? The owner-operator with authority, and they're doing really well. Our business is up 25% this year because of the economy. Now, what goes up comes down. I've seen it work like a pendulum. Yeah. You know, we go back to '08, and a lot of independent motor carriers got their credit harmed because there were many trucks sitting and going to auctions because the economy seized up and there wasn't a lot of freight. There was an overabundance of motor carriers, and it hurt a lot of people, which really, when they wanted to jump back in, it hurt them because of the credit was fractured in some degree. But that's all pretty much worked itself out now and turned around, and the economy is really good at this time.
Yeah. I had a friend who had bumped up from one truck to 5, and when that crash hit, he lost all 4 of them and just kept the one again. You know, it just that I think that's the reason why I just don't have that risk in me. People have told me for years, even from my very first year, they were telling me and my wife, you know, hey, you guys got to become owner operators or you're not going to make any money. Well, we've made plenty of money, but we never quite had that freedom. But we never felt that we didn't want the risk involved with it. I think is why we didn't do it. But you know, hey, there's plenty of Mavericks out here, like you said. So I'm not worried about owner operators going away.
No, not at all. Not anytime soon. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, now, Temple, we keep using the term own your own authority. Now, lots of us experienced drivers kind of know what that means, but I have a lot of new listeners. So can you explain to me what it means to have your own authority?
Well, sure. Let me see if I can simplify it. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and the Department of Transportation, they require you to if you want to be a for-hire trucker or motor carrier, to apply and obtain an authority, and it's by application. It's actually an application that goes both to the state and the federal, and it asks you for certain information, and it takes $300 for the federal authority, and the state authority, it doesn't cost anything.
Huh, I figured it was more expensive than that.
No, it's free. That application is free. So if you're going to a third-party administrator, like we've been for many years, if we charge $595 to do that and to interview the individual and make application to the feds and the state, then that's a good deal. But there are folks out there that are robbing motor carriers. Some charge up to $5,000, which it's highway robbery. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So you have to make application. If you fog a mirror, you can be accepted, but you have to be accepted by the state and the federal government, and it usually takes 3 weeks. And unless you've run afoul in some way or have a previous authority that there may be some road taxes haven't been paid, they have a long memory and they research all that stuff, and then they will they'll give you an opportunity to straighten all that out, and it may take a little longer. But if you haven't had any situations that are problematic for them, then you'll have your rights given to you and the number assigned within 3 weeks. Then you're ready to go get your purchase your insurance.
Is that really all there is to it? I mean, naturally you have to go buy a truck. That makes sense, but it's really just getting your own authority and then finding your own loads. That's really all there is to it. And insurance.
That's simply said. There's a lot to each part. Now, just making application is straightforward. Mm-hmm. You just pay a third party to get it for you. Now, however, there's instructions on the FMCSA website. You can DIY. You can attempt to do it yourself. But here's the problem. If you tick the wrong box and call yourself a broker, or if you put things down like you're a household goods carrier, and so there's some other things where you can mess up, it's hard to get them on the phone, and it's hard to get a refund, and it's hard to get that changed around. So it's worth another $150 to $200 to have somebody walk you through the process and do it. So it should probably take less than an hour to get the information, to put the fee on the credit card, and then the person that's helping you pushes a button, and then it goes to the feds and to the state, and now you wait. There's a compulsory 3-week waiting period, and then you will be ready to go. You'll be issued a page on FMCSA's database and on their website, and the same on the DOT side, safer system. And you can see on the federal side when you're actually issued your authority. The final leg of that is when you purchase liability insurance. That's for third-party damage or injury. You're required to have that by the federal government of $1 million. And that's an insurance policy. And when you get that insurance company, sends a filing to the federal government, and you can see that filing right on your web page with the federal government. You're ready to go. That's for anybody to see that needs to know that, especially when you run through the coop, then they can look on there and see that you have the liability insurance that's required. So the loads, that's a little bit different. We were talking about getting your authority and then getting loads. A segment of our business is providing insurance. We get authorities for brokers. We provide broker bonds for brokers and contingency insurance of several different types for brokers. We have about 200 brokers. There's about 22,000 on the FMCSA website. We have about 200 brokers insured. Now, they range from just starting out as a new entrant to up to $25 million in income. So, finding a good broker that can find loads for you of the type and kind for the equipment that you need is absolutely a must, because there's one area that your income can come from. You can look on the load boards. You can go direct to factories, extruders, any kind of shipper that makes anything in this big wide world of USA that has the gross national product of more than 25 countries, 650 billion transactions of revenue a year in the trucking transportation business. So it's as we said earlier, the economy is good. It's heated up. It's revved up, and there's all kinds of loads out there for anybody that wants to jump in and just has the burning desire to be an owner operator with operating authority.
Right. Well, you guys can take care of that. I would not. This is one of those things like, I could pull my own tooth, but I don't really want to do that. I'm going to pay somebody to do it for me that knows what they're doing. It just doesn't seem like one of those things I really want to screw up. You know what I mean?
Well, we don't look at it as a drudgery. We have 10 employees, and they're very well versed. Many of them have been here for many years, and they've encountered, and we've talked about it, and we've kept up with the changes through FMCSA and DOT, and we love the owner operator segment of the trucking business. 1 to 9 units, they become part of our family. They're the heartbeat of America. They've informed us and helped us, and we've reciprocated by finding out what we needed to know for them to help make them successful and being a good insurance partner for them. We couldn't have even got to first base without them. We've in the last 20 years we've written over 150 million in premiums, and that's from owner operators 1 to 9 units, and they're our friends, and we're going to be here for them for the long haul. We answer our telephone. Todd, I have an analogy about a new owner-operator with authority and how they should use an experienced truck insurance entity, an agent system, to provide their insurance and services for them. You know, I thought about the very first case of a road rage with a truck driver, and how that came about. In my mind was, you can think about the trucker spending his good hard-earned money to buy his first insurance policy from someone that knew very little about trucking, and he gets in the traffic jam in the middle of Atlanta, Georgia, and he's in need to have a certificate of insurance, and he calls back to the agency and he can't get them on the telephone. He tries for 2 days to get them on the telephone, and he gets voicemail after voicemail. You won't get that with us.
So that's the first case of road rage ever, huh?
First case of road rage in my mind.
I think you're pulling our leg.
Yeah, a little bit.
It could be, though. You never know.
But we do answer our phones.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the experience. You guys have, 30 years of experience selling insurance?
Yes, 31 years this year.
That's awesome. Well, again, that phone number is 888-498-0255. And you can check them out online at classictruckinsurance.com/truckerdump. And that your Classic Truck Insurance on Facebook and Twitter also, right?
That's right.
Okay. You do more on Facebook, though, right?
Absolutely. Like us on Facebook. Let us hear from you.
All right. You heard them, folks. Okay. So, Temple, if somebody wants to use that phone number to call you to check on truck insurance or getting their own authority or whatever, what do they need to have in hand when they give you a ring?
Just give us a call, ready to spend 45 minutes, have your VIN number, your driver's license, the type of freight that you're planning on carrying based on your equipment, and we'll do the rest.
Man, that sounds great. Okay, well, Temple, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you coming on here and talking a little bit about becoming an owner-operator. And is there anything else you want to leave off with?
I just want to thank you, Todd, and we enjoy your show. Thank you a lot.
Hey, I just want to thank you for sponsoring the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thanks.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to that interview as much as I enjoyed doing it. I'm finding these a lot of fun, you know? Heck, Temple and I talked for another probably 30 minutes after that interview was over. We just had a blast. He's a great guy. So, hey, again, if you want to contact Classic Truck Insurance, their phone number is 888-498-0255. Website is classictruckinsurance.com/truckerdump. And there's always Facebook and Twitter. They're Classic Truck Insurance over there. And thanks again to Classic Truck Insurance for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. All right, now it's time to get down to some legislation, because in legislation fun, it's just kind of fun saying legislation. Actually, legislation sucks. But anyway, I found this article on overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes, of course. It's called FMCSA Denies OIDA's Petition to Exempt Small Carriers from ELD Mandate. Okay, we spoke about this on the last podcast, and I just honestly couldn't understand why OIDA thought that trucking companies with under 10 trucks should be exempt. They are more likely to be reckless, in my opinion. As far as the logs and stuff go, they're more likely to fudge the numbers. But what I didn't know is what they were actually saying is only for small carriers that have a good safety record. Now, I didn't know that before, so that makes a little bit more sense, but I still don't understand. I mean, my company is huge, and they have a great safety record, probably better than a lot of these small companies, but why aren't we exempt? What's the difference? I don't really understand that. OIDA President and CEO Todd Spencer said the group is puzzled and disappointed by the FMCSA's decision. Well, honestly, I'm a fan of OIDA most of the time, but Todd, the other Todd, I'm kind of puzzled and disappointed by you guys even trying this. I mean, it's just not fair to let some people not be on e-logs and other people have to be on them. I understand if you're like within that 100-mile radius or whatever it is. Fine. You're not going far enough to even get in any trouble. But if you're over the road, you got to suffer through this like the rest of us. Sorry. No, I'm really not. Anyway, like I said, the FMCSA has denied this. They have not published their reasons why yet. That will be interesting as to why. Just listen to me, FMCSA, for a change of pace, and just repeat what I just said. That ought to be good enough, right? Anyway, let's move on. I think we got some more legislation. Legislation. All right, I'm guessing you already heard of this next story. This, again, came from overdriveonline.com. This one is called FMCSA Boss Martinez Tells Congress ELDs are a first step toward adding hours flexibility. For those of you who don't know, Ray Martinez is the head of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And I quote him, "A great first step has been these electronic logging devices because now it makes everybody on a level playing field. We all know, we have to admit, paper logs were fudged in the past." No, really? He says ELDs are less susceptible to that. Well, he is right about that. I actually saw another story recently that said that since ELDs have gone into effect, that violations are down 50%. I don't know. I'm going to have to see if I can find that article. If I can find it, I will put the link in the show notes. Anyway, here's the thing. I've been saying this for years, that this is exactly right. These electronic logbooks are not the problem. It's the hours of service. I've said this over and over and over again. The ELDs are just enforcing the hours of service. So he is right in this, that now that they're getting all this data about stuff, maybe they'll realize that drivers are having to cut their day short just to find parking, just to make sure they're parked by that 11-hour mark. That's one of the biggies. Maybe they'll discover that, sometimes you have to wake up in the middle of your sleeping shift to drive a half a mile to the other side of the warehouse and put it in a dock. Maybe they'll realize that and give us some flexibility. This is what we've needed all along, so I think this is a good thing. Let's hope something happens from it and we'll get some good data off these ELDs. Anyway, link in the show notes to this article. Okay, one last legislation article. Wow, I can't believe I said that 3 times fast. This one is, I'm not going to say the name of it, overdriveonline.com, of course. This one is basically saying that there's a new bill that's been submitted to the House that would explore more sleeper berth options. Now, I'm a little undecided about this one. I don't know. I mean, flexibility, I guess, is the key, but I'm not really sure if split sleeper berth is the way to go, is what we really need. I'm sure it will help under certain situations, but anyway, they're looking at right now you can only do 8 hours of sleeper berth and 2 hours of either sleeper berth or off duty to make up your 10 hours. But they want to discuss other sleeper options like 7 and 3, 6 and 4, or 5 and 5, which, if memory serves, we used to be able to do 5 and 5, and I know some teams ran that way. I don't know how. I'm guessing what happened back then is you would drive 5 hours, your partner would drive 5 hours while you stayed awake and talked to him, and then you would stay up another 5 hours driving, and then you would go to bed for 5 hours. I'm guessing that's the way it went, which means you were only getting like 5 hours of sleep. I can't imagine being awake for 5 hours and then going to sleep for 5 hours, even if you're only sleeping 3 of that. I just can't imagine splitting it up like that. It sounds horrible. We never did that as a team. The Evil Overlord and I always ran, well, back then it was 10 hours of driving. We'd just run 10 and 10, and we just kept moving that way. Anyway, maybe some of you out there run split sleeper berth a lot. I don't do it very often because, quite honestly, it still confuses the heck out of me, and I almost have to call safety almost every time just to make sure I'm doing it right. Unfortunately, my e-log does not tell me how many hours I'm going to have available after my 8-hour break until my 8-hour break is over. So I can't plan for the future, but once I have the 8-hour break in, I can at least see if I can move again. So that does help, but it would be nice if I could plan it out in advance. And I should be able to do that by now. I've been driving for 21 stinking years, but I still have a problem with it because I so rarely do it. So anyway, some of you drivers out there who do this all the time, will this help? Write in, or better yet, leave an audio comment and tell me what your thoughts are on if it would help you at all to be able to do 7 and 3 or 6 and 4. My guess is mainly just for emergency loads where something goes horribly wrong and you're stuck at a shipper for 6 hours. Now you can at least drive some more. I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I'm clueless on this one. Please help me out. And there's a link in the show notes, obviously, for more details on all this junk. Praise the Lord, we're done with legislation. But we're not done with the news yet. You know, there's this new thing. Well, I don't know. I guess it's been going on for a while, but I have never heard of it. It's called bus and dump. I had no idea this existed. I should know because, well, the trucking industry isn't always great, and orientation and recruiting departments aren't always great either. But I guess there's been a lot of drivers who are getting bussed like they're being hired. They're saying, yeah, come on over, we're going to hire you. And they will get bussed all the way across the country, and then they'll get in there, and then 2 or 3 days in, they'll get booted out for something, and they will just leave them. They don't provide them a bus home. They don't help them with expenses or anything. It's just, you're out here, you go to orientation, we don't like you after a while for whatever reason, and we send you back. Man, that is not cool at all. If you're one of these fleets that's doing this, shame on you. You know, you should have 100 swirlies given to all your employees. Now, I understand that if, sometimes drivers lie or don't tell the whole truth on their applications, maybe they left off a few tickets or something like that. But apparently, some of these drivers have no idea what they've done wrong, and the company won't give them an answer. It just says, we can't tell you. It goes against our policy. And like I said, that's just uncool. So I'm curious, has this happened to any of you out there? Have you been bussed all the way across the country and then just left stranded? Some of these guys were having to stay in homeless shelters and stuff because, usually when you're switching jobs, you don't have a lot of money. Maybe you've had a week off in between, or, maybe the reason you're quitting your previous job was because they sucked and weren't paying you, or maybe they were paying you, but it was just so low that you decided to go someplace else. And so now, you're on this bus probably because you couldn't afford to go yourself. Because let's be honest, who takes the bus if they have to, right? So anyway, I'm just a little baffled by all this. So if you are a trucker, like I said, who has had this happen to you, I would really love to hear from you. Send me in an audio comment. I'd love to hear your story on this. Yes, I'll take email too if I must. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that I found this over at fleetowner.com. So, hey, I gave Overdrive Online a break. Link in the show notes. All right, let's finish up this news section with some happy thoughts. We all love pay, right? Well, there's been some stories in the news lately, and they are all over the place. I've seen them on overdriveonline.com. I've seen them on Truckers Report. I've seen them on, I can't remember where else I've seen them, but I've seen 4 or 5 of these articles going around, so I know it's got to be happening. And this is the guaranteed pay thing that's starting to happen. Now, here's where I'm going to show my ignorance. I've been driving for 21 years. I should know more about this stuff, but I don't. I don't honestly know why carriers are paying more now. Something to do with the prices of freight, something to do with The ELD mandate, I am not smart enough to know all this. I should know it, but I don't. Anyway, one of the things they're starting to do, a lot of these fleets are starting to do, is offer a minimum weekly pay. Now, I've seen this for many, many years, but it's just not very common. And apparently more and more trucking companies are starting to do it. Like, for instance, they mentioned that Linde, Linde, they haul industrial gases. I guess they've had a $600 a week minimum in place for many, many years. But apparently the drivers never need it because they make more. And that's basically the idea of this, is they just want to guarantee you're going to make something per week as long as you are out, on the road. Naturally, they're not going to give you a minimum pay if you're home sitting on your butt. But anyway, they're raising these pays, though. 600 is like really tiny now. 1,000 is starting to be more typical. 1,000, that's gross. Keep in mind, that's gross. And some of them are even going up to like 1,200 or even more. Now, to me, that's awesome, because here is really what this is doing, is kind of giving you a salary in a way. It's like saying you're going to make more than this, but we guarantee that you're going to make at least this much. So if you have a really bad week, we've all had these bad weeks. Heck, I've spoken about them many times on this podcast about where, something goes wrong with the truck, say, and you're in the shop for 3 days or something like that. Well, guess what? You're no longer hurt by that. You're no longer getting this measly, $50 or $75 a day, whatever breakdown pay. No, you're getting a weekly amount. And one thing I didn't really think about, but one of the articles I read made me think about it more, is not only is this is so good for the driver, not only because you're getting paid for it, but this also motivates the carrier to actually do some stuff that they might not want to do. Like maybe they'll, pay somebody to get it in there faster and get it fixed. Maybe if this place can't get it done, they'll tow it to another place and get it done, and they're just not going to be laying around, because they don't care about the driver, not making money. Now they're making money whether they're sitting in the driver's lounge of that dealer or not. So to me, this sounds like a great thing. I mean, I recently got another raise. I couldn't believe it, just out of the blue. So I'm making 57 cents a mile now, and I'm flabbergasted, I mean, I was hoping for a 3-penny raise. I was expecting a 1 penny, and I got a 2 penny. So right in the middle, I'm pretty happy with that. Anyway, I really don't know why my company is already kind of at the top of the pay, but I guess they just want to stay a notch above. Whatever. This seems to be great for trucking, and all of us truckers. Now, here's the problem. When I got this message on my PeopleNet the other day saying, hey, I was getting a raise, and I thought, wow, I have mixed feelings about this. And I even spoke about it to the guys in my Slack group. And I was like, well, I'm torn, because naturally I want a raise. I want to make more money, but the more money I make, the more trapped I am in this industry. I know I'm going to have to take a pay cut to get a local trucking job. I understand that, but this gap just keeps getting wider and wider and wider, because from what I've seen, it's just over the road companies that are really, doing this minimum pay, or they're jacking up their pay rates. It's not so much the local companies, because those guys got you by the gonads. They know you want that local job. They know you want it, and you're willing to take a pay cut for it. So why do they really need to raise their pay? So anyway, that gap between what I'm going to make off the road and what I'm making out here is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just harder and harder to quit. So anyway, I'm torn about that. Yes, I know it's a horrible problem to have. First world problems, right? Okay, I think that just about does it for news.
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
Yeah. I know I said in the last podcast the Trucker Grub section was over. What? You know what? Well, let me just explain something here. David wrote this email to me. It's a kind of a feedback thing, but I'm going to play it now because it's relevant. Not play it. I wish I could play it, but this is David's point exactly. Okay. He says, "Greetings, Todd. Hey, don't kibosh the Trucker Grub feature so fast. We will miss it. Okay, think for a minute. As a podcaster, you know how weird it is to hear your own voice, right?" Yes, I do, David, but you get used to it. He says, "So it is with us. So we would rather send in an email explaining about our favorite restaurant. I mean, we are drivers. We care about food. That's what we do. We tie on the feed bag. Some of us tie on several. So if you'll allow us to send emails of our best places to eat, you won't have to stop that feature of the show. Let me know and I'll email you a few places I like to stop at. God bless, Driver Dave. P.S. Glad you're still podcasting." Well, where would I go? Just because I miss a month? Psh, man. Anyway, okay, here is the deal. Kind of the reason why I did that last episode was, say, hey, I'm just going to kibosh this thing if I don't get audio comments, is because I really love to hear people's voices on the show. Whenever I listen to other people's podcasts, I always like to hear not just the host, but, when people send audio comments and they talk about something they want to talk about. It just adds flair to the show, I think. And, especially like when I can get some of these submissions from England or Australia or something like that, it just makes it even cooler to have all these strange accents on my podcast. Anyway, I think it's more interesting for you guys also. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it seems to me that I talk enough on the podcast that, get some other voices involved. And this is kind of what I did with the guest blog posts. If you notice, I don't have quite as many as I used to have because I just didn't want to read somebody's blog post. So now if somebody wants to submit a blog post bad enough, I tell them, hey, if you want it bad enough, you have to do the audio portion too. And usually they go running and screaming to the hills. And I understand that, but sometimes it's just, I don't know, sometimes you just have to do what's best for the show. Anyway, I told David that I would put this out to you guys because, he said, hey, we'll send in emails if we're given the opportunity to send in emails for our favorite places to eat. Okay, well, that's fine, David, but nobody did it. Nobody even emailed. The only people who did was Bob and Chris, and quite frankly, I had to ask both of them to do it. So I just have a feeling that this section is not quite as popular as you think it is, maybe, David. I don't know. You people out there, you tell me if you like it. Send me an email with your favorite places to eat. Now, one thing I do know is that my methodology kind of worked last time because Adrian, who is also known as Squints, he was on the fence about sending in an audio comment. He didn't really want to, but when he found out the Trucker Grub was going to go away, if I didn't start getting audio comments, guess what? He did it. And you know what? It sounds really awesome. So I'm going to play that for you right now.
Hello there, Todd. Adrian here. Squints on Twitter, longtime listener. I thought I would send in an audio comment since you asked for them so much. I know I meant to send it a long time ago, but much like you, I get busy and forget. I'm from California, so my suggestions will be for Southern California. So the first and best place to fuel up in Barstow has 4 of the big name truck stops. If you don't mind much of a walk, you can park at any of them and walk, but if you don't want to walk more than 10 minutes, park at the Flying J, not the Pilot. And walk about a block or two over to a little burger joint called In-N-Out Burger. Family owned and often argued by many as the best burgers in the country. I used to work for the company, and all their claims to freshness and quality are ridiculously true. It's just a good, simple burger. I prefer a double-double animal style, or a burger with grilled onions, add ketchup. There is a secret menu you can look up online, but it's well worth the walk. Further south at the Petro in Ontario, if you walk up and over the freeway overpass, there's an In-N-Out there as well. If you don't want to park and pay at the Petro or the TA, to be honest, no one would blame you, Drive away from the freeway under the bridge and turn left on Airport and right on Etiwanda, and a couple of miles down the road on the corner of Etiwanda and Marley is an amazing little restaurant called Cowboy Burgers. Parking is only $10 and they give you a voucher for $10 worth of food, which is basically any meal. Half the price of the truck stop, much quieter, and the food is really good, and I've yet to show up to a full lot, even at 2 in the morning. I hope I was of some help for anyone listening. Make the podcast longer, and stay safe out there, everyone.
Now see, that wasn't so hard, was it? See, there was a little bit of background noise, but you know what? That's fine. You guys are truckers. I understand that. I'll try to weed as much of it out as I can. I'm no expert at this. Anyway, thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Squints. Appreciate that. The Evil Overlord and I did hear about In-N-Out Burger back when we were driving, and we did finally make it in there one day, and I will tell you, you are exactly right about the freshness. I've never tasted a bun on a hamburger that was fresher. We liked the burgers. We didn't think they were quite as great as everybody says they were, but they were really, really good. Personally, when we were down there in near Ontario, we always went to the Farmer Boys, I think it was called. Farmer Brothers? Farmer Boys, I think. Anyway, maybe one day I'll do my own trucker grub on that one. But anyway, yeah, In-N-Out is a great choice, and they are starting to expand out of California. They used to just only be out there, but I'm seeing them in Texas now. There's one right near the TA near Dallas, not the one on 20, but the one on 30 out there. There's one within walking distance of there if you get a chance to run in there. Because really, who wants to go to California, right? So anyway, Squints, thanks for overcoming your fears. Hope you do it again sometime. For the rest of you out there, it's really not that hard. Just stop the truck, turn the truck off. Just tell me what your favorite restaurant is and how to get there and what you like about it. It's really not that hard. Email it to truckerdump@gmail.com. Now, one thing was pointed out to me, that sometimes I have a tendency to just go all in and say, this is going or this is staying. I'm taking this section out. I'm putting this section in. Aaron from my Slack group reminded me I don't really have to do that. There's no reason why I can't just put in a Trucker Grub audio comment when I get one. You know, if I don't have one some episode, it's fine. And then, if I get one 3 episodes later, I can just put it in. So that would fix my problem. I'm serious, folks. I really don't want to read more stuff. I read emails. I read articles. I read my own stuff. I read everything. And I just want you, please, people, just submit your own audio comments. It's not that hard. Okay. Now that I've shamelessly groveled, I will move on. Hey, since I just spoke of the Slack group, why don't I go ahead and give you my contact info. Again, the email address is truckerdump@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. Yes, I know I always do this at the end of the show, but I'm 100% positive some people just stop listening once that final music starts. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, you are missing some bloopers and things at the end of the show that I put in there for all the people who are nice enough to stick around till the end. So you're missing out. Oh well, it's not that big of a deal, honestly, but the people tend to like it and they want more of them. So, by the way, all of these bloopers are honest things that I am saying. I'm not making anything up. I'm not adding anything for flavor or anything like that. It's just stuff that I say to myself sometimes when I screw up. So anyway, I might want to stick around for that. Anyway, okay, the Slack groups. The Trucker Dump Slack group is getting pretty active. We've had a few new members join over there. Squints has joined, although quite honestly, he's been very, very quiet. He says he is not much of a social media person. So, hey, maybe it wasn't for him and that's fine. Would love to hear from you in there though, Squints. Bill Watts joined. He goes by Kilowatts in there. We got Jerry, who goes by Jerry, and Bolt, who is his actual name is Scott. Those are all new people in there, and you could join too. Just send me an invitation request to truckerdump@gmail.com. I'll get that in your email right away. It's really easy to join. Basically, Slack is just a glorified chat room, and we get in there and we rib each other and have a lot of fun and talk about trucking stuff and talk about whatever. Also, if you are into Apple gear and iPhones and stuff like that, and you love that kind of crap, then you can join the iTruckers Slack group by emailing itruckers@icloud.com. And Bob, Trucker Bob, will get an invitation sent out to you pretty quick. There's also the Facebook groups. Just search for Trucker Dump Podcast Group over on Facebook, or there will be a link in the show notes to all of this stuff, as there always is at the end of the show notes. Enough about that. Man, we live in a crazy, crazy world. If you've been paying attention to the trucking news at all, you've probably heard about the trainee who stabbed his trainer to death. You hear stories about road rage and people shooting their guns from one car to another. Even a trucker shooting in a car. There's been stabbings over parking etiquette. And there was a shooting over a guy who butted in front of another guy at a fuel bay. Guy just walked up, shot him, and then turned the gun on himself and shot himself. It's nuts out there. And just so you know I'm not making all this stuff up, check out the links in the show notes to all these wacko incidents. So, you might be asking, what can I do about that? Well, for starters, you can get the Escort Mobile Emergency Device from Citadel Fleet Safety. What this is a little key fob device that you wear around your wrist, on a lanyard around your neck, or on your belt clip. And it's basically a two-way radio. You hold down the big shiny silver button for 3 seconds, and you're talking to one of Citadel's emergency advisors right away. They assess what you need, and they send out the proper people. Now, you may be thinking, hey, won't 911 do that? My cell phone will do that. Well, I don't know about you, but if someone's trying to stab me or somebody is trying to shoot me, I'm not going to have time to fumble for my phone. That's just me, though. I just want to hold that button while I'm running. So anyway, this thing has a GPS unit in it, so even if you can't answer, they know where you're at. And if you don't answer, they're going to send somebody out immediately. They're going to send everybody. You might even see the Avengers show up. I don't know. And in case the Hulk actually does show up, the Escort is made of really, really strong stuff. Sure, Hulk smash anything. But if you just drop it accidentally or something like that, it's going to survive. But you know what? It's not just for emergencies for you. If you see a lady trucker getting mugged in the parking lot, you want to run over and help, you want both hands free to tackle that dude, right? Just hit your button and start running. Another handy feature is that you can set the device to track you, and it'll report that location to your family. Or leave that feature off, your choice. Seriously, this is a really cool device. You need to run over to citadelfleet.com and check out some of the videos on it. And because you're a Trucker Dump listener, Citadel Fleet Safety has given you a special discount. The device is normally $29.95, but they're selling it to you for $22. Now, this is not just for your first month. This is for every month you decide to keep the unit. There is no upfront cost. You just pull the thing out of the package and it works. So how do you collect this discount? Well, you go to citadelfleet.com. That's CITADEL fleet.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the customer login button. Click that. Then you'll see the Trucker Dump logo. Click that. And then enter the password Trucker Dump, all lowercase, all one word. Ta-da! You got your discount. Don't forget, there's a link in the show notes, or you can give them a call at 800-269-5905. And thank you to Citadel Fleet Safety for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. All right, on with the main topic for today. You know, this one is pretty self-explanatory once you get into the story, so let's just get it kicked off. I called it, How Much Should Truckers Bend the Rules? The trucking industry is full of opportunities to fudge things. But the question is, should we? Where do we draw the line between fact and fiction, between right and wrong? In other words, how much should truckers bend the rules? This was a topic of conversation I had in the Trucker Dump Slack group after a friend called me out about something I mentioned doing. He was basically questioning whether what I was doing was moral or not. For the record, this is one of the things that I love about the Trucker Dump Slack group. We can usually have a lively yet civil conversation without anyone getting bent out of shape and resorting to personal insults. So anyway, I don't fault this guy at all for questioning my morals. In fact, I welcome it. You see, this guy is a friend of mine and a fellow Christian. Now stick with me here. I know some of you guys get weird when I start talking about Christian stuff. It'll be over soon enough. Anyway, I just need to set the stage so you can see where we're both coming from. You know, even non-Christians know the verse in the Bible about not judging other people. Heck, they quote it all the time to justify some of their behaviors. Now, this makes sense when you're talking about unbelievers. I mean, why should a Christian judge them against something that person doesn't even believe? Doesn't make any sense to me. On a side note, people who disagree with Christians should remember this also works in reverse. But anywho, far too often Christians use this rule amongst themselves too, and that is not what the Bible says. There are many verses saying we are supposed to hold our fellow Christians accountable, that we are to call them out and try to help bring them back if they're going down a slippery slope. So with that explained, let's move on to what my friend was calling me out on. Sunday school class is hereby dismissed. Alright, let's get on to what prompted all this. The evil overlord and I are planning to go on a little trip to her aunt and uncle's lake house this weekend. We'll be doing some skiing, some canoeing, some fishing, some jet skiing, and possibly some golf if we can squeeze in a few extra hours so I can have time to look for my ball in the weeds. Now, we haven't done anything like this in ages, so we're both really looking forward to it. Now, here's the problem. To enjoy a mini vacation, you need money, right? Well, my week was looking like I was only going to have like a measly 2,000 miles. However, if I could deliver my 700-mile load by Friday midnight, I'd jump from a bad paycheck to an excellent paycheck. Only problem was I needed to go 616 miles in 11 hours in a 64-mile-an-hour truck on a Friday around Atlanta and down to the Orlando area. Now that's no problem since I'm a super trucker and all. You know how that goes. This friend of mine didn't think I could do it. I told him he should go ahead and wash his feet so they'd taste better when I proved him wrong. Well, I am awesome, so I arrived at 11:30 p.m. with about 40 minutes left on my clock. I went into the office only to find out there wasn't going to be anyone who could sign for delivery until 4 a.m. I asked the dock guy, but he refused to sign the bill. Now here's where the dilemma comes in. In order to get paid for a load, my company has to receive my arrived at consignee call and my empty call by Friday midnight. So now what? Well, I really needed those miles for a good paycheck. Okay, now here's the way I looked at this. For starters, I had run all the miles, but I had not officially delivered the load yet. Not without that signature and dropping the trailer. Now here's some other things that factored into my decision. I had been to this place before, and I knew it was a drop and hook place. I could see at least 5 empty trailers from my cab, so I knew it wouldn't wind up being a live unload. I also knew that a product count was not necessary at the time of delivery. They just sign the bills and hand it back. Furthermore, this warehouse opens the trailer doors from the inside, so you can't even break the seal. That's a little thing that verifies the trailer hasn't been tampered with. But you can't break that before backing into the dock. So basically, I knew this drop was happening no matter what. There was absolutely no reason to reject the load. So I sent the arrived and empty messages, and I told the gang in the Trucker Dump Slack group about it. Now for the record, I would not have made this choice if I had been even 10 miles from the delivery. The only reason I did it is because I was on site. This is when my friend rightly questioned my honesty. His point was that if my company's policy considered a load to be delivered only after the bills were signed, then it's a lie to turn in that message before that process is complete. Officially, he's 100% correct. He's also only been driving for a little over a year. Now, I truly believe that just like the evil overlord in me, his sense of things will change the further along as his trucking career keeps going. We'll hear about that in a second. He was also concerned that it might screw up my dispatcher if they thought I had already dropped, when in reality, I hadn't. Now that's fair. He thought they might go ahead and dispatch me on another load. He's also 100% right about that. But I had that problem licked too. You see, I already had my next 2 loads planned out, so that wasn't going to be an issue unless dispatch changed something on their end, which, I admit, that's totally possible. The question of right and wrong. I remember back when the evil overlord and I first started trucking. We went in determined to follow the rules to the letter of the law. We were going to obey all company policies, and we were going to run our logbooks completely legal. No hot dogging it for us. Oh, the naivety of the newbie. It wasn't long before we realized that the trucking industry is full of stupid rules. For instance, we discovered right away that we never got paid for all the miles we ran. We were even paid practical miles at our first company, and it still shorted us. It only got worse at subsequent companies when we discovered the Household Movers Guide method of figuring paid miles. What a joke. Now for your non-truckers, let me explain. This method pays post office to post office, not actual addresses, which we all know is totally doable with today's GPS technology. Yet most carriers still use the Household Movers Guide to calculate their miles. Why is that? Well, because it generally pays the driver about 10% less than they've actually driven. And because they can get away with it. Another example is getting paid for loads. Back when the evil overlord and I started, our paychecks were determined by what loads we could get turned in by noon on Tuesday. These were back in the days when many companies still had you mail in your paperwork before you could get paid. Yeah, seriously, snail mail, like a freaking caveman. So we might deliver a load Friday night, but the mail system wouldn't get it to the payroll department until Wednesday evening. How fair is that? That often translated in not being able to make your mortgage payment one week and getting raped by the IRS on the following week's paycheck. Now eventually, carriers started using electronic methods like TransFlow to send in your paperwork. While this was better, it still required you to be at a truck stop with a TransFlow kiosk by a set deadline. Now if you didn't have a load going toward one in time, you were still screwed. Thankfully, TransFlow now has a mobile phone app, so I can actually send in my paperwork minutes after I deliver. Not that I need that anymore, since as I said before, all they really need is my arrived and empty messages to be sent on the truck's communication device. Now please keep in mind that each carrier handles this differently. This is just the way mine works. I'm sure there are many that still require paperwork in hand to pay you for your load. Heck, I still see guys faxing stuff in. Unbelievable. And here's another example. Logbooks. For you non-truckers, we drivers have to keep a record of every moment of our day. Nowadays, it's all done electronically, making it harder to cheat the system. I did wind up finding the link to that article that showed that there is a 50% drop in violations, in hours of service violations. So check that out in the show notes. But you know, back in the day, we used paper logs. Now, it was a fairly common practice to fudge paper logs. The evil overlord and I never really abused it, possibly because we were a team operation that didn't really need to, but many drivers used to run 2 logbooks. They'd leave out entire trips after the fact so they could log more hours in a week. In all honesty, Boy Scouts honor. Wait, I wasn't a Boy Scout. Anyway, we never did that. The most I was ever off was about 3 hours. I don't even remember the circumstance of that, but as luck would have it, I got pulled into a Kansas way station for a paperwork check. The trooper briefly examined my logbook and handed it back. How he didn't notice that I shouldn't have been standing there for another 3 hours is beyond me, but I was obviously overjoyed. But you know what? I never got that far out of sync again. It scared the crap out of me. But you know, the trucking industry isn't a perfect world. There were times when you couldn't find parking and you had to drive a little over your time. To fix that, we just drove however many minutes less the next day to make up for it. Or maybe there was a traffic jam due to construction or a wreck that could delay us 3 hours. We'd log those 3 hours like we took them at a truck stop. So according to my paper logs, I don't think I ever had a delay due to traffic. See how lucky paper logs are. The point is, trucking companies don't succeed by throwing their money away. By and large, the trucking industry works on a small profit margin. Any penny saved is a penny earned. Think of all the little extra things that most of us drivers don't get paid for. Fueling, truck inspections, minor mechanical breakdowns, waiting in line at a customer's guard shack, getting your truck washed, sweeping out a filthy trailer, sliding your tandems to get your weights legal, sitting around waiting on a load or a message from dispatch, listening to horrible hold music on the phone, and in my particular case, sitting in an inspection bay line at my company terminal for 2 hours. Now, as another Trucker Dump Slack member, Chris, aka Gravy, once pointed out, most of that stuff is figured into your mileage pay. And he should know because he owns a small fleet of trucks. Now, I guess I can see his point about sweeping a trailer, fueling, inspections, and common tasks we have to do on a regular basis. However, I'm not convinced that waiting for 2 hours to get a tire fixed or waiting an hour for a message from dispatch is included in the mileage pay. Heck, I once had a company tell me they didn't pay vacation pay because it was figured into the mileage. What the heck is up with that? While the pay rate was good, it wasn't that good. Yeesh. The technicalities of trucking. In my point of view, so many of these moral choices we have to make are based on the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law. I think we all have to judge what we're doing and decide if we're okay with it or not. For example, I'm a Christian who believes in the Bible. It flat out says that you shouldn't lie. So was I lying by submitting my load as delivered when it wasn't officially delivered yet? I honestly don't know. Now hear me out. To me, this is just a technicality. My company has to set a deadline for their company policies. So by the letter of the law, I was wrong to say I had delivered already. On the other hand, I get paid by the mile, and I had run all the miles by midnight. I was sitting on their property, and there was no chance they weren't going to accept the load. So my conscience is clear on the latter choice. Let's look at another example of a technicality. My company will only pay detention time, that's time spent waiting at a dock to load or unload, if I send in a detention request before I send my final empty call. If I send it even 30 seconds before that empty message, I'm good. But if I forget and send it 30 seconds after the empty message, they won't pay my detention time unless I call and pitch a big baby fit. This drives me up a frickin' wall. Why? Because they know when I arrived at the customer and when I left. I always remember to send those messages. Heck, the arrival call usually pops up automatically when I stop thanks to the magic of GPS. All of this is simply a technicality. And here's another thing to prove my point. This company policy can be overridden easily if someone decides to do a little computer fixing on their end. It literally takes a few minutes at most. So if they can fudge the system, why can't I? Now, as I was justifying my actions to my friend, he pointed out that two wrongs don't make a right and that we can only control our actions and choices. Again, wise words that are 100% accurate. But that doesn't mean I'm going to do it that way. Now, as a Christian, I know I'm supposed to turn the other cheek. But even Jesus himself didn't always do that when he was justified in his actions. And if Jesus was doing it, well, there's no question in my mind that it was justified. Case in point, he cleared out the temple with a whip and overturned all the tables when people had turned the holy place into a marketplace. Now, I take that to mean that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you have to get walked on and abused. You've got to work the system here. Again, all these trucking companies have systems in place so that everyone who works there has a guideline to go by. Sometimes these systems work for you, sometimes they work against you. Let me explain one more situation that happened on the same weekend to explain how this system can work on your behalf or against you. So after my Friday night delivery, I picked up a 190-mile load Saturday morning that delivered the following morning. I drove straight through and got parked by 5 p.m. on Saturday. Now my delivery was set for 10 a.m. on Sunday. So if you do the math, that's 17 hours I'm going to be down already. Now my next load was scheduled to pick up any time after midnight on Sunday. So basically, by the time I could pick up, I'd have been sitting for about 31 hours. At that point, I might as well stick around for another few hours and get my 70 hours back, right? I mean, you know how I like to do resets instead of working against my recap every day. I mentioned that in the last podcast, Trucker Dump 129. Check that out, link in the show notes. That one was called 4 Ways to Become a More Efficient Trucker. So anyway, I delivered Sunday morning and I received my new load information. Now, I thought it was going to be a live load, but apparently it's a preloaded trailer. An important point here is that I still had 12 hours available to run that day, but I didn't pick up any hours after midnight, which is why I was trying to do a 34-hour break. The big key here is that the load comments did not say the load was ready. It still showed a pickup time of any time after midnight. Now, according to episode 129, 4 Ways to Become a More Efficient Trucker, link in the show notes, I normally would call and ask if this preloaded trailer was ready early, but I didn't. Why? Well, first, because I didn't want to screw up a 34-hour break. But the main reason is because my company has a policy that I get $75 if I have fewer than 500 miles over the weekend. Now, here's where things get morally sticky. I had only run 190 miles so far for the weekend, and I wasn't planning to drive until the early AM hours of Monday. That means I would only be getting 190 miles over the weekend. which makes me eligible for the $75. Now, I could have called dispatch and they might have told me the load was ready to go. I did have hours to run after all. But if I grabbed the load, I'd then miss my chance of the $75 extra, and I'd also screw up my 34-hour break. However, if I uncharacteristically act like most truckers do and just accept their stated appointment time as gospel, I can get both the weekend pay and the 70-hour restart. So there's the choice I had to make. Play dumb and reap the benefits like most truckers would in this situation, or by being my normal efficient self, I might wind up screwing myself out of $75 and in the long run being actually less efficient by not getting my 70-hour reset. I thought about it for about 2 seconds and went with the playing dumb. I did this for 2 reasons. 1, my dispatcher may look at the situation on Monday and decide not to pay me anyway. There won't be anything I can do about it at that point. And secondly, I've gotten screwed by this less than 500 miles things many, many, many times. In fact, they did it to me again in this example. Here's how they squeeze out of paying weekend pay. By the way, I generally like my company or else I wouldn't have spent 12 years of my life with them, but every company has their stupid rules. Okay, here's one of them. Okay, for easy math, let's say I have a 501 mile load, and that's all the miles I've got until Monday morning. I pick it up on Friday afternoon. I run 495 miles on Friday night, and I drive 6 more miles after midnight to arrive at my delivery at 12:06 a.m. Saturday morning. Guess what? All 501 miles will be counted as weekend miles because I officially delivered on Saturday, despite the fact that the vast majority of the miles were run on Friday. But wait, this can also work against me on the opposite end of this. Now let's say I've been sitting at a truck stop since Friday at 11 p.m. I finally receive a 600-mile load at 11 p.m. on Sunday. Now you can see where this is going. Yep, all 600 miles counts as weekend miles, even though I may only be able to knock off about 60 miles at most. This is the method they used to screw me this time. I delivered the 190-mile load on Sunday morning, and they immediately dispatched me on a 325-mile load, even though the pickup time was set for any time on Monday. Now, those 2 loads totaled 515 miles, as my dispatcher matter-of-factly pointed out when I requested the $75 weekend pay. Now, in my book, those 325 miles shouldn't count towards the weekend, but they do. It's just another example of how these companies work the system to their advantage. Seriously, receiving weekend pay at my company is about as rare as a porcelain doll that actually doesn't look creepy after the lights are turned out. So when I have an opportunity to make it work to my advantage, I do. Or in this case, I tried. Is that morally wrong? I suppose it might be. But again, my conscience is clear about this. All I'm doing is trying to make the system work for me, just like they're doing for themselves. Nope. 2 wrongs don't make a right, but it does help me feel like I'm getting just a tad bit of the money I've been screwed out of over the years. It's just too bad it didn't work this time. Now here's one final argument. Now let me present one bit of math to put the nail in the coffin here. Let's jump back to the household movers guide thing that usually pays 10% fewer miles than I actually run. I've driven 21 years. Okay, you see where this is going, right? Alright, let's say I averaged 120,000 miles per year. This is actually a low estimate. That totals 2,520,000 miles. Alright, let's go ahead and round that down to 2.5 million because math is hard. Alright, I got screwed out of 10% of those miles, so that's 250,000 miles I've never been paid for. Now I'm guessing I averaged about, probably 45 cents per mile over that 21-year span. Multiply those 2 numbers together, and now, I'm just really depressed. Apparently, I've been screwed out of over $112,000. Wow. Just wow. You know, I think it's safe to say that no matter how many times I manage to work the system to my advantage, I'm never going to break even. So my conscience is clear. Is yours?
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Well, no episode of Trucker Dump would be quite complete without driver Chris Mack opening his big yapper. Actually, in this case, I was talking to him on the phone, and we were talking about episode 129, which is 4 ways to become a more efficient trucker. He did not agree with efficient trucker tip number 2, which was sleep at the customer. He does not like to do that. Actually, he was the guy I was mentioning in the podcast that I knew he didn't like to do it, and he refused to do it if at all possible. But the reason he doesn't like to do it is because, and I do understand this, some people are not as good with sleep as I am. I can just wake up in the middle of my sleep. I can go right back to sleep after I'd done whatever I had to do. It's not that big of a deal to me, but I understand not everybody is like that. Chris is not like this, and I imagine some of you are not like this. So, for instance, when he's sleeping at a customer, like I was saying, a lot of times the reason you want to do that is so your break is not interrupted, and you can just sleep while they're trying to load your truck or unload your truck or whatever. And he has a hard time sleeping while that's happening. He also has a hard time going back to sleep. So if he gets woke up in the middle of his sleep to go take a dock, then he can't go back to sleep. And he just likes his continuous sleep. So he doesn't like to be at the customer where they can mess with him. So I get that. That is not a point I really pointed out very well, I don't think, but I'm just, this is my blog. This is my podcast. I speak from what I know and the things that work for me. And this is just suggestions. I'm not forcing this on anyone, but anyway, thanks Chris for weighing in on that. And, thanks for, wasting some of my time out on the road as we talk. I appreciate that. Hey, do you remember last episode we heard from Driver Dave and I told you that there was more from him? Well, I've got 2 more. I'm going to read one today. He says, "Greetings, Todd. So I thought I'd write a bit more here. I got the dreaded PeopleNet e-log, and actually it's not quite as bad as I thought it would be. I just have to remember that if I'm at a customer and I'm waiting for a dock, I'll put it on off duty and not burn too many hours." Yes, that is the trick when you're first starting out on these things. If it doesn't, when you stop, if you don't do anything for a while, you're not driving, it will revert to on duty automatically. And I just hate that. I think that's stupid, but a lot of e-log systems do that. And I know the PeopleNet does. Although I know carriers can set them up differently. So maybe that isn't a PeopleNet thing. Maybe that's a carrier thing. But anyway, yeah, you're smart to always go off duty. If you don't a few times, you will learn really fast as you burn your hours away. Anyway, he says, "Normally now I run from London, Ontario to Ottawa, Ontario on Sunday afternoon and begin my weekly deliveries. So I showed up at the junkyard last Sunday, but after a lot of searching, no trailer. It turned out it was in Menominee, Wisconsin, 45 miles from Minnesota. Yeah, so I had to go get my load. The other driver had brought me an empty trailer." Wow. That's bad. I wonder how heavy this load is. If it's a heavy load, that driver should have known that trailer was empty. He says, "Anyway, because the clock had run for 5 hours, I only got to Hampshire, Illinois," which, for those of you who don't know, is right northwest of Chicago out on I-90. He says, "Luckily I found a spot at midnight at the TA." Man, that was lucky. "Then I went and got my buggy and back to Hampshire, Illinois about midnight. 2 available spots at the TA, and I was waiting to spin around and back into one when a professional type came blasting in and took the spot, taking off the mirror of another truck with the nose of his trailer in the process." Wow. He says, "Is this how it's done now? Just bash your way into a spot?" Well, no, Dave, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be done. He says, "So I went across the road to the Citgo and found one more spot in the mud. However, I didn't see the sign in the dark, so I got a knock on the door. The owner wants $10 for a permit." Yeah, hate that. He says, "Really? In the mud with discarded refrigerators and furniture and a very large pee jug in front of my truck? Oh well, I needed the spot, so I paid up. Things are going well with my CPAP machine, and I feel a lot more human after 7 to 8 hours of solid sleep. I got myself a lithium-ion battery so that I can use the machine off-grid as it were, so I can shut the truck off. Without the battery, the load shedding alarm goes off, and I wake up and have to start the truck after about 3 hours. Not good and a big waste of fuel. Anyway, Todd, thanks for the podcast. Keep podcasting and spreading the podcasting message to others. God bless. Well, Driver Dave, you keep spreading the message of the podcast too. And you know what? I was not aware you were on a CPAP machine. I think in all of our emails back and forth, I did not know that. That's interesting. My friend Shannon has a CPAP machine too. And I don't know. I guess they work. He seems pretty happy with his. Sounds like you're pretty happy with yours. I don't know. Kind of look like Bane from Batman when you're wearing it. But I guess if it works, whatever makes you happy. Anyway, thanks for writing in with that quick little story, Dave. Well, I'll be dingy-danged. What the heck is this thing? An audio comment? Yes, it is. This one is from Nick. He wrote in about Trucker Dump 125, which was called Reserve Truck Parking, Convenience, or Exploitation. Link in the show notes. Take it away, Nick.
Hey Todd, this is Nick Mack. I'm in Ardmore, Oklahoma at the Love's Truck Stop. So I'd like to apologize if anybody hears the semis next to me or any of the noise from all the trucks near me, because we can never hear the noise for you and you always apologize, so I figured I'd do that too. Anyway, I'm new to truck driving, and I entered the truck driving world. I decided in January of this year to get my CDL because I went to college and I earned a college degree, a bachelor degree from the University of Wisconsin at Oshkosh, and I have a whole lot of student loan debt to pay off. And after some research, I learned I could make more money truck driving, being a professional driver, than I could with my college degree.
Hey, Nick, wanted to interrupt you here for a second. You know, something very similar happened to me in The Evil Overlord. This story is actually in my book, Trucking Life. We were actually getting ready to go to college and couldn't because we were too broke. So we needed to pay off some debt. So that's why we got into trucking. We were just going to do it for a few years. But once we found out how much we were making in trucking compared to how much I was going to make if I went back to school and graduated, it just didn't make any sense. So anyway, just interesting that we both went down that path. I'm just glad I didn't get all that student loan debt like you did. So anyway, carry on, my friend.
So I ended up going to a truck driving school in Chicago and overpaid and got my CDL, and now I'm driving truck.
Congrats.
I just wanted to let you know that I'm almost caught up with your entire podcast. Not to give you a big head.
Too late.
But you do a really good job. Thank you for taking the time to create these podcasts for us trucker dumpers.
You're welcome.
We all appreciate the hard work that you put into these. And I just wanted to say it sucks because when I'm caught up entirely, and I don't have far to be completely caught up, I'm going to have to buy your books. And I'm a cheap arse too. And I think it sucks that I'm going to, just to keep getting some laughs and entertained and learn more about the truck driving world. It's not a bad thing, but I'll have to buy your books. It's just I'm a cheap arse too. Anyway, this is in reference to your Pay to Park Trucker Dump episode 125.
All right.
I wanted to say that you should be thankful for Pay to Park. If there were not those Pay to Park spots, you would not have had anywhere to park at 11 p.m. And I'm pretty sure that you and everybody knows without those Pay to Park spots, that truck stop would have been full. I'm kind of fortunate that my company will reimburse me to Pay to Park, but also being a newer driver, I'm not an expert at backing. I know how to back, but I'm not expert at backing it, and I got a split axle flatbed, and you can't do tight turns with those, so backing up is not always the best. But sometimes if I'm getting into a truck stop late, I look for the TAs or the places with Pay to Park, because I shouldn't have a problem being able to get in an easy parking spot. So for those reasons, one is there's usually a Pay to Park, so if you're showing up late, you can almost always count on being a spot. And then two, it's often easier to get into the Pay to Park spots. So a newbie like me with a split axle flatbed, sometimes you just got to go to those Pay to Park spots because you can't do those tight turns. Anyway, that's what I have to say about Pay to Parking. We should be thankful that there are some of those Pay to Park spots so that we can always, almost always, in Denver, Colorado, you're never going to get a Pay to Park spot at 11 p.m. But it's great to have those because then if we need a spot, we can almost always guarantee to get one of those late at night, like you did and like I've had to do once or twice. Thank you again for these episodes of Trucker Dump. We all appreciate it. and have a good day. Bye.
Well, thank you, Nick, for sending in this audio comment. That's awesome. You're welcome for the podcast. Wish I could do it more, but I've complained about that enough as is. Anyway, this paid parking thing, I get your drift. I really do. Especially in your situation, like you say, split axle, flatbed, new trucker, easy backs, late night. I get all that. It's just, I don't know. To me, it feels like exploitation because people aren't using these spots the way they designed them. The whole idea of these is they want you to call early, reserve the spot, so you're sure to have one later on. But that isn't what people are doing. They're doing like you, and they're showing up late, hoping there's a spot, but if there isn't, then they pay for it. So that makes it seem like exploitation at that point. Hey, the lot's full, but you can pay right here. I don't know. I just don't like it. Maybe I'm just old school. I do remember the days, years ago when some truck stops were all paid parking, but I just avoid those places like the plague, unless I absolutely had to. And it does make a difference. Like you said, that your company reimburses you. That would make a big difference. I just don't think most companies are doing that yet because I don't think they like this paid parking any more than the truckers do. Anyway, I guess each to their own. You can like it. I'll continue to hate it until I need the spot. But you know what? That's wrong too. I'll continue to hate the spot even though I'm paying for it. Because I'm paying for it, really. Yeah. Well, anyway, Nick, thanks for the audio comment. Like I wrote you in the email, it sounded great. It was a perfect length. I didn't have to edit, didn't have to put any noise filters on it or anything. It was awesome. Y'all should follow Nick's example now, okay? Hear that? It's not that hard. And we got 2 more emails for the day. Actually, this one is from Squints, who did the trucker grub earlier. But you know what? He admits this email went on, and it really did. It was very involved, but I liked the content of it. I read it. I looked at all the pictures. I enjoyed it. So here's what it was all about. Squints was really not happy with the storage situation in his truck. And because he is on a small fleet, he got the owner of the company who owns the truck, he got the permission to build some cabinets in there, and he went to town with some 2x4s and some plywood and some, some little latches, and even was smart enough to leave a little notched out spot in the back right where the light in the back bunk is, so it like shines into his cabinets, which is really cool. They look pretty darn awesome. And I just was wondering how many other people have done stuff like this to their truck. Now, I know most company drivers are not allowed to, drill into things and build things and take out cabinets and stuff like that. But I wonder what you drivers have done, both owner-operator and company drivers. How have you modified the inside of your truck to make it work for you? For instance, my friend Trucker Bob, who we heard from last episode and who is now recently retired, he has driven for 30 years. I think last episode I said 25, but 25 was at JB Hunt. He has driven a little over 30 years, I think, total. Anyway, he actually had his passenger seat removed, and I know a lot of drivers do this if they can, and they will put refrigerators and microwaves and little stands with stuff on it, CBs maybe, things like that. He actually had an exercise bike where his passenger seat should be, and he would strap it in with the seat belt so it wouldn't jump around on him while he was driving. Pretty ingenious. Of course, I would never ride an exercise bike, but I'm just curious what you guys have done. Send me some pictures. That would be really cool. Or just write me a little email and tell me what you've done. And thanks for bringing up that idea, Squints. Appreciate that. And last but not least, we hear from Scott, who prefers to go by the name Bolt. That actually sounds like a soap opera character to me, but He likes the name, and there's some meaning behind it, as he explained to me in an email. But anyway, he writes in, "Today, for the first time, I found your podcast. I really am not much of a podcast listener, but may begin to follow them more. I will soon be attending a company-sponsored trucking school and wanted to share a few thoughts about your podcast. The one I listened to was on your 4 ways to become a more efficient driver. I follow a website called truckingtruth.com. If you're not familiar with it, it's designed to give the best and most truthful advice to newbies like myself who are wanting a new career in trucking. Anywho, a couple of the things that they discuss frequently is managing your clock and making use of all your time. It was nice to hear an experienced driver like yourself praising the ELD. It's here to stay, so the best way around it is to learn how to work it. Again, thank you for your podcast. I'm sure I will listen to it more as I start driving." Okay, Bolt. First off, truckingtruth.com. Yes, I'm very familiar with Brett, and his advice is solid. I actually read his book. It was one of the reasons why I wrote my book. I thought his book was very good, one of the best I've read out there about this industry, but I just found it to be just a tad bit short and, just not quite as complete as I wanted it to be. But anyway, the website's good. Brett, I'm not sure if he's even driving anymore, but he still is active, I think. He did have a podcast for just a little bit. I think there was only like 5 episodes in it sometime in 2017. But you might go back and check out those. Probably some good information there. I listened to a couple of them, if I remember correctly. Anyway, he's a really smart guy. He just chose trucking. I mean, seriously, he's a really smart guy. So go check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes to truckingtruth.com, by the way. You'll be able to find all that stuff. Anyway, thanks for writing in and telling me you enjoy the podcast. That makes all the difference. Makes me know that I'm just not doing this for nothing, so I appreciate that. I would like to mention also that Bolt joined the Trucker Dump Facebook group, and he also recently joined the Trucker Dump Slack group. And as a matter of fact, I just sent out an invitation to Nick also. So that group is growing over there. You guys need to hop in on that. It's fun, fun, fun. Anyway, Bolt, I do have something to pick here. You said I was a fan of e-logs, but, well, I'm not, but I get your drift. They're certainly not more efficient than paper. There's no way that's possible. But like you said, they're here to stay, so we may as well quit whining about them and get on with our lives, And as for having time to listen to podcasts, boy, you are going to have a lot of time once you're a truck driver. I mean, a lot. Oddly enough, when you like listening to podcasts, even when you're driving 11 hours a day, you can often get way behind. I mean, you can get subscribed to so many different podcasts and they have so many different episodes that you just can't get caught up. I'm moderate compared to like my friends Trucker Bob and Mike Rogers, who is Pack Rat in this Trucker Dump Slack group. Those guys both are subscribed to about 1 million podcasts, and they're never going to get them all listened to, and they know that, but they just can't force themselves to unsubscribe. So anyway, yeah, plenty of stuff to listen to out of here. As he wrote in the email, he knows I have a bunch of back episodes. So, that is one thing I have noticed, that when people find my podcast, they will often go back and download older episodes. And I know they're doing it because my numbers are off. Like, for a particular recent episode, I might get a particular number of downloads, and then I look, and what my 90-day total is way more than what it should be for the last 3 podcasts. And that tells me that people are still downloading the older episodes, which is great, which is exactly the way I designed Trucker Dump, to be evergreen content where people can come years from now and hopefully find some relevant information. Most of my stuff is not time sensitive. There are a few posts in there, but they don't get much attention anyway. So anyway, thank you, Bolt, for being a part of the Trucker Dump Slack group and the Facebook group. And thanks for writing in. I appreciate it. And there's actually another one of his that I will read on a future podcast. Hey, I do actually have one more bit of feedback. You know, I like to read these iTunes comments when I get them because I don't get them very often. Usually they're positive, but every once in a while they are negative, and I got one this time. Actually, I think this is my first 1-star review, so it's a milestone for me, right? Woohoo! Anyway, this came from Coheed619 fan. He writes, "Thought I found a nice podcast to listen to until the Life is Crap episode. As a gay trucker, anytime I hear someone say gay agenda, it's automatically they're willfully ignorant and bigoted. Thanks for being a stereotypical truck driver." Alrighty then. Well, clearly Coheed is not probably listening to the podcast right now. I hope he is, though. I honestly couldn't remember what I had said, so I had to go back and look. And I will read it to you right now. What I said was, this was just a list of stuff that I disturb me or I didn't like or just pisses me off. And this one said, bumper stickers that say Jesus is a liberal. Show me in the Bible where Jesus promotes the gay agenda or the murder of babies, and then maybe we'll talk. Okay. I am going to stick by this statement because I don't believe in the Bible anywhere that it says anything good about homosexuality or, murder. And so, I'm going to have to stick with that one. I respect your opinion, Coheed, but I disagree with you. Anyway, if it's funny that this is coming about at this particular episode because I was going to say that I don't discuss religious stuff very often on this podcast. And if he had stuck around, he would see that. That's very few podcasts I mention anything about it. And this one I did a little bit. So, anyway, I just wanted to read that because, I'm not very often called a bigot. I don't much like it because I'm not a bigot. I've had gay friends in the past. I don't have any now because, well, I drive a truck. And obviously Coheed is not my friend. But I don't know, just because someone says the words gay agenda, he automatically thinks I'm a bigot. The Bible teaches me to love all people. I love all gay people. I don't necessarily approve of what they're doing because of what the Bible says, but that's between them and God, right? I'm not going to treat them any differently than I treat anybody else, but I'm labeled as a bigot, and now this is in the iTunes reviews, and anybody who goes in there will see it and think I'm a bigot. I don't know. It's a big word to throw around for something so small. Ultimately, sounds like he's a trucker. Maybe he could have gotten some good use out of the podcast. I don't know. He probably might have liked it if it had not been for this early episode. I guess we'll never know. I guess what really, really, really bugs me about all this is that you just can't disagree with anybody nowadays without being labeled as something, whether it's a bigot or a racist or whatever it is. You just can't, you cannot disagree with them. I would like to make one clarification about the homosexuality statement I made earlier. The thing is in the Bible, homosexuality is listed along with other sins, just like adultery, just like lying, just like blasphemy, just like stealing. It's just right along with their drunkenness. It's just another sin. So homosexualities have a different set of sins to deal with than I have to deal with. I'm a man. I've got to deal with my own lust issues, so it's just something each of us have to deal with. And that's the way I look at it. I don't look down on you or anything because of what you do or how you live your life. So I hope there's someone listening right now who is gay. They have not turned this off. I hope you see that my heart is in the right place. And if someone takes something wrong, I really can't do much about it. I mean, I'm not going to agree with everything you do in anything, any, social issues or political issues or whatever. And you're not going to agree with me on everything. And that is just okay. We can still be civil to each other, right? Okay. Well, with that, I guess we'll crank up some music and get out of here. Man, that was deep to end on. So, is your conscience clear when it comes to your trucking decisions? Do you work the system, or do you go strictly by the book? Go to abouttruckdriving.com and search for TD130 to leave a comment or shoot me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com. Better yet, voice your thoughts into your voice recorder and send me that. And while you've got your phone out, record your favorite place to eat on the road and send that along with it. I can also be reached on Twitter where I'm at Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. And please come hang out with us in the Trucker Dump Podcast Facebook or Slack groups. Links in the show notes. Well, as always, thanks for listening and subscribing to the podcast. So until next time, drive safe, stay out of my way. Okay, and the phone number to get that is 888-498-05. Let me repeat that. And the phone number is... Let's go. That'll go in the blooper reel. Yeah. All right, now it's time to get down to the legislation, because we all love I can't say that. And you're automatically routed to one of their emergency advisors. They'll immediately... Hey, Nick, sorry, had to break in here. You know, something like what? Good Lord. Hey, Nick, I thought I'd pipe in here for a second. Because I've lost my train of thought completely. Wow. Hey, Nick, thought I'd interrupt you for a second here. You know, something very similar to this happened. Something very similar to this. What does that even mean? I need to go to bed. I'm getting tired. Wow. He actually had a bicycle sitting over there. Not like a ride bicycle, but like an exercise bike. That's the word I'm looking for. Man, I'm an idiot. Bicycle, exercise bike. There's a difference. Good googly goo. He says ELDs are less susceptible. Wow. Yeah. I know I said in the last podcast that the trucker dumps. Yeah. I know in the last podcast I said the trucker dump. Not the trucker dump. Yeah. I know I said the Trucker Grub podcast. We can usually have a lively yet civil conversation without anyone getting out of bed out. Sunday school class is hereby diminished. I went into the office only to find out there wasn't going to be anyone who could sign for the delivery until 4 a.m. Ooh, that's a big mistake. Not p.m., a.m. You moron. Then it's a lie to turn in that message before that process because God, I'm like choking on myself. Nowadays, it's all done electronically, making it harder to cheat the system. What the heck is a system? We compensated that by just driving a few less. We compensated that just by driving however many less the next day to make up for it. To fix that, we just drove however many miles less the next day to make the. To fix that, we just drove however many miles less. To fix that, we just drove. Boy, if it's not on the page, I cannot ad-lib it. Ugh. Seriously, receiving weekend pay at my company is about as rare as a porcelain doll that actually doesn't look creepy after the lights are turned on. Off. But it does help me feel like I'm getting just a tad bit back all the money I've been screwed out of. But it does help me feel like I'm getting just a tad bit back bit of the money. Two wrongs don't make a right, but it does help me feel like I'm getting just a tad bit of the money I've been screwed out of over the... You're going to sound so awesome when it's done.
I don't know.
If I can
they call me the hayseed on the telephone.
If I can make myself sound good, trust me, I can make you sound good.
Well, good. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Most of my bloopers are me stumbling over my own words, so I'm used to it. All right.
Well,
Boom, baby.